Hey, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you spending some time. There is a law in Arizona that prohibits biological boys from participating in girls' sports. There were two girls' families that filed a lawsuit against the superintendent and enforcement of this rule. So the superintendent involved in this, and it went to a court, and the initial judge has put an injunction in place here on this. So joining us now is the superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horne. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's always great to be with you.
You almost predicted this, I think, the last time we talked, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that they were looking around for the right judge. They went down to Tucson to find one. Were you surprised by this ruling?
No. Your memory is absolutely right. It was a matter of forum shopping. Even though most of the parties were in Phoenix, it should have been filed in Phoenix. And when we moved to move the venue back to Phoenix, this judge denied it. So we already had a feeling that which way she was going to go, even before she had seen any of the pleadings on the merits. The plaintiffs did not seek to hold the whole statute unconstitutional. They claimed it was unconstitutional as applied to them because they're 11-year-old biological boys who have taken or are taking puberty blockers so that they won't have the testosterone that a male has. However, we submitted a good number of peer-reviewed studies. Peer-reviewed meaning that studies that have been validated by objective people, showing that even before puberty, boys have an advantage over girls. And we have a declaration from someone who coached elementary school for over 30 years, who said on the playground, you can see the boys do better than the girls even before puberty. And your listeners can talk to what any elementary school coach they know, and they'll tell them the same thing. The boys are better at athletics in elementary school even before puberty. So I think the decision is clearly wrong. I'm pledged to appeal it. It's a big national issue, so I believe the U.S. Supreme Court will take it, and I have absolutely no doubt that the U.S. Supreme Court would rule in our favor.
So you're a lawyer, so you know this better than the rest of us do, or most of us do, when it comes to the legal decision here. What was the basis for the judge agreeing in this case?
The judge said that we had not presented evidence that a boy with puberty blockers would have an advantage over girls, but that's just flatly wrong. We presented a number of studies. The other side had zero peer-reviewed studies. They had a doctor who has done this procedure to over 500 kids, so therefore he's got a financial interest in it, saying off the top of his head, if they have the puberty blockers, the boys will have no advantage. But he has no way of knowing. He's in his doctor's office. He's not out in the field the way our witness is. And he had zero studies to support his position where our experts said they've searched the record, and every single study that's been done shows that the pre-puberty boys do have an advantage. Now, I think the reason I'm fighting this so hard is not only on its merits, but because I think this has very little application just to these two plaintiffs, and possibly by analogy to other boys who have puberty blockers. But I see it; they're doing it as a first step to get momentum to change the whole law, and that would be a catastrophe. The papers have been full of girls who say that they worked hard to excel in their sports to make the varsity team, or maybe get a college scholarship, or maybe even go to the Olympics, and then they come up against a biological boy, and they have no chance, and they're devastated. Their dreams are shattered, and it's cosmically unfair. And so I'm fighting this as a matter of fairness.
And so I'm curious, according to the law, it doesn't sound like male and female are defined by genitalia, or at least that's what judges are saying, because Title IX expressly protects women's sports. And so you would have to believe that you can be biologically a male and yet still be identified as a female and really be a female to be protected under Title IX. Am I wrong in that assumption?
Well, I think biological male and biological female are clearly defined things. There was the newest Supreme Court justice couldn't define a woman, but we all learned in ninth grade that a woman has two X chromosomes and a man has an X and a Y chromosome. So that's clear. What they're saying is that if the boys don't have an advantage over the girls because they use puberty blockers, then the legislature didn't have a valid reason to pass a law that would apply to them. That's their argument. Our argument is that they're wrong on the facts, and even on the law. When you're talking about sex discrimination, it's what we call intermediate scrutiny, not strict scrutiny the way it is on racial matters. So if the law generally applies properly for a valid purpose, then the fact that there may be some exceptions shouldn't invalidate the law, even as applied to the plaintiffs. So I think this judge is clearly wrong both on the facts and on the law, and I have no doubt that the U.S. Supreme Court would overturn her ruling.
Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Arizona, Tom Horne, is joining us. So what is the next step? Who do you appeal this to? How quickly do you expect it to be heard? And you think it's going to the Supreme Court. How quickly would it get to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Well, it would take time. We will appeal this what we call preliminary injunction. This is a preliminary ruling, but it's appealable. So we're appealing it to the Ninth Circuit. It used to be that the Ninth Circuit were almost all liberal judges, but that's changed recently. There have been some conservative judges. The liberals are still a majority, but you still have some chance to get a panel that'll be objective. Then we go to the actual trial on the merits, which is different than the preliminary injunction, and presumably she rules against us then as well. We appeal that to the Ninth Circuit, and if they don't overturn it, then we appeal to the United States Supreme Court. So it would take some time.
Well, I appreciate.
And in the meantime, it only affects immediately these two students, and at worst, it would only affect young boys who've had puberty blockers and not applied generally.
Yeah, that is. I think that's a big point for parents out there to understand. Appreciate the time as always. I look forward to talking with you as this moves forward. I think you're right. It's an important case nationwide. It's happening here in Arizona, and thanks for updating us.
Thank you for having me, and I'm always available no matter how short notice. I love being on your show.
All right, thank you. That's Tom Horne, Superintendent of Public Instruction.